you. Right. Hi guys, welcome to the next charcoal, which is the Books and the Owl this time round. I picked this one because it's something different compared to what we've done before. What I like about it is it's got also, again, different sort of textures. Well, not an extreme variation in textures, but it has got some different textures in it. And also it's got a lovely difference in tonalities, you know, so you've got nice darks and nice lights, and that always makes for a good monochromatic picture. You know, you don't want everything to be the same sort of tonal value. So whenever I pick something, I always try and find something that's got a good tonal values in it, you know, a nice variation of tonal values. All right, so again, I'm going to be using my phone as a reference because I just find it's easier with regards to zooming in on the finer details if you want to go the detailed version. Okay, remember, you don't have to do this as detailed as I'm doing it. You can make it slightly rougher if you like. It depends on your style as well. My style is very much a smooth, detailed style, okay, and because of the paper that I'm using. All right, if you're using a rougher paper that's going to give you that sort of coarser texture, then you can't really go too detailed. You must actually work with what you have. Okay, so I find with a rougher textured paper, then you tend to have your style a little bit looser. And what I mean by looser means just you're not going to go and put in every single little crease and etc, etc. All right, so depending on the type of paper that you've got will determine what your picture is going to look like. So don't try and make it look exactly like mine if your paper is different. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Because otherwise I find students get a little bit stressed when it's not looking exactly the same, you know. Okay, cool. Right, so you guys have got all of the stuff. You've got your paintbrush and your charcoal dust, because we're going to be using some of that for the background today. A blending stump and your cotton earbud. And then obviously your erasers. Okay, so your hard eraser and your kneadable eraser, and if you do have the pencil eraser, then that's extremely handy, especially when it comes to maybe doing the writing or whatever it is, when you've got to find a detail. All right, you don't have to put the writing on. Look, obviously you're going to have something there, you know, so it doesn't have to be very specific writing, or it doesn't have to be the writing that's in the picture. All right, okay, so what I want to do is I want to start off with the background again this time round. Just easier for me to do the background first, and I don't normally like to work on the right hand side because then I have to lean on it. Okay, but what I'm going to do today is just use a piece of paper to lean on that part of it, and remember, we can just fix it up if it does smudge slightly. All right, okay, I just find it's easier to do the background and then put the books on top than to do the books and then try and put that background in and to go matching up with the edges of the books. Okay, because then you start getting a funny halo around your picture. All right, so we get a piece of willow charcoal. Remember, don't use any charcoal pencils unless you want to bring in a very dark area. Okay, and we're going to use a blending stump to blend it. All right, so we're going to start putting down. You can start working at the top. And remember to always follow the texture of the object that you're actually busy working from. So your wood doesn't go down like that. This wood is going across, so that therefore you must always use your blending stump the same way. So you can see the background one, that texture actually goes down. So when we put this color down, or when we put our, sorry, not the color, when we put our charcoal down, you're actually going to be putting the charcoal down that way, and also we're going to be using the blending stump that way. Okay, so but we're first going to finish this piece off here. Okay, remember to squint. It does help to squint because I want to get the tonalities right over here. You can see it is slightly darker on the right hand side, so you can bring in, let's first get that line. Okay, so I'm going to use my Hard Eraser now. Okay, this eraser has got paint on it, so just remember, if you do use your erasers, make sure you haven't used it with any other medium, like a painting medium. And you know, I do use the erasers, the painting medium sometimes, so rather sometimes better just to cut a new piece. Okay, remember you can use a ruler. If you haven't got a very steady hand and you want to use a ruler, you can use a ruler. Just put a ruler down and then do your line. Otherwise you can do it freehand. But if you do use a ruler, I just want to show you, make sure that when you put the ruler down, just put it down. Try not to move it, you know, so don't shift it around, because otherwise it's going to affect what you've already done there. And then you can literally just take your eraser and just bring in your light line where you want it there. Like so. So you've got a straight line. You don't have to worry too much about making it too perfect by doing it freehand. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in a little bit of the texture of the wood. You can leave it as it is. If you want to bring a little bit of texture, you can. Just to give it a little bit of texture. I know there isn't a lot in the actual picture itself because it's quite blurred there. But I'm just going to bring in a fraction. And then I'm going to also just bring in some 1 or 2 darker lines there as well. Back in with the charcoal. Remember, only using willow charcoal here. Okay. Alright, so again, if I want to have a nice straight line there, just for where those two sort of join up there, I'm going to put the ruler down again and just make it nice and dark, just to get it down there. And you'll see now, because I've already rubbed the charcoal into the paper, this will go dark quite easily. Okay. Go. Right, now I'm going to make this nice and dark. If you don't want to use the blending stump here, you can also use the paintbrush, but it will take off more. So just be very careful with it. So you see your paintbrush here, that's nice. So if you want to make it slightly lighter, then use the paintbrush because it'll take off more. Okay. I don't want to use the eraser there for the moment because it is a sort of more of a blurriness there. It's not quite so sharp. But if you want to keep it sharp, it's also fine. Also depending on the paper you're using. But you can use the paintbrush here, it works quite well. Okay. But if you want to keep it dark, then you need to use the blending stump. So you can see the difference there between the two, using the blending stump and using the paintbrush. Okay, cool. Right, so that looks quite cool. I'm very happy with that. Okay, now I'm going to do the background. So remember, the background, we're going to be working down. Okay. Those dark little pieces I'm going to bring in afterwards, those dark panels, where it shows the difference in the panels. So remember to use your charcoal in the same direction as the surface that you're busy creating. It really does make a difference. So there you can see I'm going to bring in those dark areas now. Just make sure they're nice and straight. So just make sure that these lines that you bring into the background do run nice and vertical. Okay, don't make them skew. Make sure they are vertical. If you even have to take a ruler and measure it, then you can do that. Okay, but if you've got one of these, it's also quite handy. As long as that line's straight, obviously. Okay. But normally your brain will actually know whether it's straight or not. So I did make sure my book as well. There was one book here that had a very straight line, a vertical line, so I made sure that that was vertical. But it wasn't too much of an issue because the books are lying slightly skew. Okay. I'm going to use the paintbrush here just to bring in this area that's slightly lighter in the background there. Okay, so it's not a lot. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to squint my eyes. Okay, so I'm not going to just go into it. I'm going to literally squint my eyes, look at my reference, and then I'm going to just gently, while my eyes are actually squinted. Okay, so while I'm squinting, I'm going to bring in that tonality there. Right, so with the background of the books now, the books I'm going to do with the charcoal dust, okay, because I want to keep that nice and light. If you do have any marks over here, then I would suggest that you just take them off first beforehand. Just make sure your page is nice and clean, okay. And we start working with the dust. Okay, right, so you're going to get your nice biggish paintbrush. Remember, it must be a soft paintbrush, it mustn't be a hard paintbrush, it mustn't have hard bristles, it must have soft bristles. Okay, so I don't want to put on too much initially, so I'm going to tap and I'm going to start putting in my books. So where the two books join there is obviously a lot darker. Okay, so that left-hand book there hasn't got a lot of detail to it, but it has got some texture. All right, so I'm going to take the Willow charcoal, and this is exactly why I didn't want to draw on here, because I'm going to be leaning on here. Just remember to grab a piece of paper to lean on, especially if you are going to be leaning on that area over there. Okay, and I want you to then make this darker section very carefully with your hand. So now you can lean and you've got a bit of control. You're going to make this shadow over here where the two books join. Try and keep that as straight as possible. Okay. And then slightly lighter as it goes in. And now you can start bringing in a little bit of that texture. Just, you can see it's sort of like a roughish, got a funny little texture to it, that book. Okay, a little bit of texture going sideways like that. Leaving the little grey pieces in between. Okay, so the grey that we've just put down now, because it's not white, it's more grey. You're going to leave the little bits of grey behind. So So that writing part we can bring in afterwards. I wouldn't try and do that now. You can even spray your picture when it's done and bring it in afterwards if you want to. Okay, there's a bit of a shadow there created by the other one. So I'm just going to bring it a little bit darker. And don't forget this little piece here. So that book on the left hand side has got an edge going down into the other book. Okay. So you can see the side of that book. So the only book that you can really see the side of. To make that nice and dark. And just bring in those little textures, and now you're going to use your blending stump. Okay, so you're going to use the blending stump now to smooth out and leave the little grey pieces behind. So you can see what I'm doing here, guys. You can just look up quickly. You can see when I'm busy working on this now, I'm going to leave some of those greys behind. I don't want to get rid of all the greys. Just bring some of that texture there. So that top edge where that book meets the background, okay, so the top of the edge, you want this book to stand out quite nicely. You want it to be nice and sharp, okay, because it is slightly, it's got more of a texture than the background. So we're going to use your hard eraser for that, and you can just clean up that edge just so that it shows up lightly. You can make it a little bit lighter than it's actually in the picture, just so that it stands out nicely. Okay. Don't make it too much lighter. You can also use a needle eraser for that as well, if you don't want to use the hard eraser for that. Okay, and then I'm going to just bring in. So this bottom of the books over here, guys, so you can just look here again. The bottom section of the books. So in the reference, you'll see at the bottom over here, it's got these dark shadows. Those dark shadows we can bring in when we do the foreground, okay? So you can just finish the books basically. And then, as I said, you need to make this quite dark. So that very line over there must be quite dark. You're going to have to go back into that slightly again. Okay, so that's that book done. If you really want to and you want to bring in the writing now, you can. You can just bring some vague writing in there. Don't use the willow. Don't use don't use this, okay, the charcoal pencil, because it's going to be too hard and it's going to make too dark a line. What is better is if you've got a very small little piece of willow charcoal, okay, which you can then bring to a point. So you can either use a blade and bring it to a point, or you can use a bit of sandpaper to bring it to a point as well. But what you can do then is just then go and do it into your jar so that you don't waste your charcoal. And just give yourself a nice sharp point, just very carefully. Okay. The sandpaper also works very well. Okay, so I'm just going to write here this G and Y. Remember, you can use any letters you want. You don't have to do the same letters as these. And then I'm going to go back into that with the blending stump. Just to blend it in a bit. Okay. Just so that it looks like part of the book. It's not just something over and then be done on there. Okay, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go into the next one. Okay. So you'll see with the next one, it is a lot lighter in tonality as well than the one we've just done. Not the whole thing, obviously, but fairly compared to the other one it is. So with that one, I'm going to take the charcoal dust and I'm going to give that one edge on the left-hand side slightly darker, make it slightly darker. If you want to, you can use a smaller paintbrush. Natasha, did it work when you used more of a round?
Yes, definitely it was better.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. Okay, so there again, I'm just going to try and make this a little bit darker. So you can see there's quite subtle tonalities on this book. If it doesn't want to go dark enough with the willow charcoal dust, and you find it's not going dark enough, you can use your willow charcoal, but then you're going to take your willow charcoal and you're going to use your blending stump. Get a relatively biggish piece, not too big, not too small. Okay, so just look up quickly. So for that little darker section over there, where you want the tonality slightly different, you can take your willow charcoal and you can take your blending stump and you can put some willow charcoal on the blending stump, like that. And you can just test it on a piece of paper to see how dark it's going to go when you put it down. Okay, and it depends as well. Sometimes you've already picked up some charcoal from your existing blending and you should be able to put down slightly darker tonality and quite smoothly. There we go. That's working quite well. You don't want to go into it with the charcoal itself. It will be too dark. Okay, so we're just trying to get that difference in tonality, but we're trying to keep the relative smoothness. And then those whiter areas, I'm going to actually just go in with the hard eraser. So if you have got the pencil eraser, you can use that to bring in the whiter areas, or you can just go in with the hard eraser. There are quite nice little sharp edges to those little white bits there, so the hard eraser works very well. So that's what I'm using now. Okay, so with that little bit of detail in there, so that funny little scroll type of thing over there, you can bring that in if you want to on top. You just have to do it very lightly, also again with that little sharpened piece of charcoal. Willow charcoal there. I'll try and keep it. I'm obviously not going to go and get those patterns in there, but I'm just going to give a sort of a rough idea that there's a pattern there. So maybe just make some circles or something. Okay, just to give it that sort of feel that there's definitely something different going on there. So I'll just make some ovals and circles in there, and then I'll go into that with the blending stump again, just to blend them in. So that little part with where it's got the writing there, the light writing, that sort of writing is going to be quite difficult to do because it is quite small. So there you will definitely need a pencil eraser to do that. Okay, and have a nice sharp point. You're not going to really get that right with the sharp eraser, because the hard eraser isn't going to give you a sharp enough point. So there, if you don't want to erase that, you can just put it on dark, as in like you did with the other writing, dark writing. Okay, so if you don't have a pencil eraser, then you can just go into it with the, make it dark writing instead. I'm going to go in with my eraser pencil now, make sure it's got a nice sharp point. So you'll get different types of eraser pencils. You'll get some that have got a slightly different texture to them. This one has got quite a coarse texture, and then you get ones that have got a smoother texture. So this one I'm going to get as sharp a point as I can. If you really need to, and you find that it hasn't gone to a sharp enough point, luckily I have with this one, then you can use a bit of what's it, sandpaper. Just get a piece of sandpaper here. Okay, just be careful, obviously you don't want to use sandpaper that's already got charcoal on it, and you can just sharpen your edge slightly there. Just do it very carefully though. It just depends on the texture of the eraser. Okay, try and get it as sharp as possible, and it obviously depends on the size of the writing as well. So you can see it's not too sharp, but it's sharp enough. It's just to get that impression. So when you finish that book and you're happy with it, then you can go and do the next book. All right. So if you want to bring in some more writing or any of those little scroll things or whatever, you can. Look, you can also do that afterwards if you want to. If you've done the books and you feel like you want to bring in some of those funny little things, then you can do that. Or you can just leave it as it is. Okay, now I'm going to do the next one, and the next one was exactly the same way with the charcoal dust and the paintbrush. What you can do here before you go into that, you'll see there is a dark line, obviously where the two meet, so there's a shadow in there. If you want to bring that dark line in first, you can do that. You can use a ruler if you want to keep your line straight, or you can do it by hand. But obviously if you're going to use the ruler, then you're going to use it on the area that you haven't worked on, because otherwise you're going to be destroying your picture that you've just done. You could put this down here. Okay, so the tricky part here is if you're going to be using willow charcoal, it's actually going to be too thick. Okay. So you're either going to do the willow charcoal and do it by hand, or if you want to, this is where you can bring in your charcoal pencil now. But just remember, you've got to be very careful where you put this line, because it is a permanent line. So just make sure it is in the right place, and you can just do a gentle line. You don't have to do it too hard. Oh, and then also make sure this is sharp as well, so because it's quite a thinnish line. So make sure that it's sharp. And then you can use just like the medium or the soft here. Okay, the medium or the soft one. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in the line. The charcoal pencil just to bring that line in there. And then I'm just going to go in with the blending stump and I'm just going to blend it in. And it's giving me a nice thin line. I wouldn't have been able to do that with the willow charcoal, it would have been too thick. And it's not a very thick line, that. So I want to rather keep it relatively thin. Okay, and then I'm going to go into that book now. Charcoal dust. So if you want to make this spine look rounder compared to the other books, you can just take your paintbrush and you can actually sort of make the texture slightly different with the paintbrush. The paintbrush will actually give it that sort of roundish texture. I'm not sure if you can actually see that on the video, but you should be able to see that it's given it slightly rounder texture, whereas that texture was going down. Okay, so I sort of made the lines go more down like with that one because it was sort of flatter. And there I've actually sort of given it a slightly rounder texture. Okay, so it's very subtle, but it is there. Okay, if you look at the bottom writing that goes at the bottom over here, that has definitely got a curve to it. All right, so that particular writing at the bottom there, that has got a curve. This dark writing over here, you can actually do with the charcoal pencil because it is dark. So you can go into that with a charcoal pencil. And I'm going to just bring in some shadows though first. Okay, so I just want to give this book a little bit more texture. Just get a bigger piece here. Sometimes you'll find that your charcoal, depending on what make it is, sometimes it can be a bit rough on the edge. So, and you put it down on the paper and it's just very, like that piece is very rough and issue when it starts. Okay. So I'm going to sort of try and just get some of that rough edge off, just get the charcoal going. If it does do that to you, just first give it a bit of a clean almost. It's almost as if the charcoal hasn't quite done its job. Charcoaling properly. Okay, so I'm just giving it a little bit of texture. Then I'll go back into it with the blending stump there. And here again, you can also accentuate the fact that that book is a little bit rounded by making sure that your marks actually follow that sort of cross contour. Okay, so give it a slight curve. All right. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing it just to give you the example that you can see that this book has got a slight curve to it. So I've actually made it slightly more curved. And all I'm trying to do here as well is I'm trying to make sure that each book is different from the other. So I don't want the books all to be the same. That is why I'm changing the texture slightly with each one, doing something slightly different with the next one. Okay. So this edge as well is a bit darker, so I'm going to go into that with the charcoal there a bit, and then go back into it with the blending stump there, just to give it an edge. If you're scared of losing that edge, remember you can go into it with the charcoal pencil there, just to make sure you don't lose it. So what I want you to make note of quickly, so guys, just look up here quickly. If you're looking at this book and you look at the reference, you'll see that the lines at the top curve down. like that. Okay, they don't curve that way. All right, because if you're looking directly at it and you're looking at eye level, as you look up, the curves are going to go like that. Okay, all right. And the ones at the bottom, the curves are going to go down like this. All right. There we go. So now you can see, just by putting those few little marks, curved marks in your actual texture, and also by doing it on the edge of the book, you can now immediately see that book has got a slightly different shape to it than the others. Okay, now I'm going to go into the top. So this book is a little bit higher than the others, but it can be shorter. You know, the height of the books as well. I mean, you guys can change that. So if you want the books to be slightly shorter or taller, or a lot shorter or a lot taller, you can also do that as well. Okay, so you can just make them your own. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in those little white little bits that I see. Those nice little old torn little edges, frayed, well-used book. That's what appealed to me about this as well, is this whole the fact that you can see these books have been very well read. So you want to give it that impression, you know, when you put your marks in. Okay, so here again I'm going to bring in that line with the charcoal pencil just to give it that definition from the rest there. Because this one next to it on the right there is actually slightly in front of it. So that one on the right hand side of this book is creating a shadow. But that's how you can see which book is more in front of the other book. Okay, it's by that shadow. So you can see that book over there is in front of this book. Okay, that's how you can see that. So you can use your charcoal pencil to do this. I'm just going in softly with the charcoal pencil there just to bring in that little bit of a shadow, and then I'm just going to blend it with the blending stump. The reason I'm not using willow charcoal there is it's too small an area. Okay, I can't do such a small area with the willow charcoal. That will just be too much of a mission. So I'd rather just go in and just use the blending stump, and then you won't even notice the difference between the two textures. Okay, and now I can do the writing if I want to do the writing. Again, just make sure that that pencil is nice and sharp. Especially with that writing there, it is quite distinctive. So I'm going to try and see if I can actually write that. If I can't, okay. So there, when I'm talking about sharp, I mean sharp like that. Can you see how sharp that is? Okay, so make it very nice and sharp. So I can see there is a slight highlight going down the middle over here. So I'm going to bring that highlight in. Okay, so you can do that before you do the writing if you want to. But you can do it after the writing because the writing's done with the charcoal pencil. So it's not an issue. I just want to bring in that sort of a slight highlight, and then I'll just soften it with the paintbrush. The highlight is more at the top, it's not so much at the bottom. Okay, so you can see there is definitely a highlight there. I am making it obviously quite white compared to the rest, and then I will just soften it, and then as it goes towards the bottom it sort of disappears. You can leave it just like that if you want to, or if you prefer to soften it, you can. Okay, I'm just going to soften the edges very slightly there, like so, and that's done. Okay, so now we're going to carry on with the next books as well. So we're going to use the same principle as we did with the last book, except obviously we're going to leave the white area white here. Okay, so if you look in your reference, you'll see obviously that one area is a bit whiter. So we're going to stick with that. Remember to use your piece of paper to lean on as well. Okay, while you're busy working. All right, so we're going to use, so this one has got a slightly different texture. So this one we're going to put on with the charcoal. All right, and I'm going to show you how to do this one. This will be a nice one just to give this a really nice texture. Okay, so we're going to go in with the charcoal with this one. And just leave the white where you want the white to stay. All right, so if you need to draw in sort of a slight edge, you can. Just to show where that part of the book is actually still there. Okay. Not pressing too hard. So what you can do here is you can use the paintbrush, but now you can see I'm not wiping. If I wipe, it's going to take off too much. Okay, I'm going to dab rather. Okay, so I'm going to dab. And if you need to put on more charcoal, if your charcoal wasn't dark enough initially, you can do that. You can just put more charcoal on and carry on dabbing. Okay, so we just want to dab just to get that sort of tonality. I don't want to wipe too much off. The only reason I'm not doing this with a blending stump, if I use the blending stump, then I'll be pushing the charcoal into the paper and I'm not going to be able to erase those nice little white marks. So that's the reason I'm using the charcoal and this book, the paintbrush. And don't worry, you're going to see it's leaving some sort of weird texture behind, but don't stress about that. We'll get rid of it just now when we put the lines in. So you just dab. You can use the side of your paintbrush like this, just sort of get a general sort of feel. If you want it slightly darker, just go back into it in certain areas if you want it a little bit darker, and then just do the same thing again, okay? So you just want to add a little bit of variation. So I'm trying to keep that left edge quite white, because it has got a nice sort of white edge, and it makes it stand out from that one in the background. The one next to it on the left hand side. So if you didn't want to bring in any extra texture into that, you could actually just leave it as it is. It's actually got quite a nice texture. But you can actually make this any texture you want. All right. You want to leave it just like that, because it is slightly different to the others. You can. But I'm going to use the eraser to go into it just now. That dark left-hand side there where it joins, where the wall is nice and dark, we'll do that afterwards, so don't worry about that now. And this is now where you can use your hard eraser. So your hard eraser has got a slightly sharper edge to it, which is what I'm looking for. This eraser pencil hasn't really got one, but I know you get those other eraser pencils that have got certain sizes to them, that you can actually buy a different size eraser pencil. You can use one of those if you have one of those handy. So I'm just going to bring in those other marks that I see first at the top, and then I'm going to go in with the edge. Just make sure you cut a nice sharp edge before you go into it. Remember to squint your eyes every now and again just to check, making sure you're getting the right sort of feel. Okay, so I'm going to cut this now. Get myself a nice sharp edge. Okay, so I've got myself a nice sharp edge like that. It may not last very long. And okay, so this is where you've got to be quite careful and have your hand leaning against here. So you can just have a few little lines. You can see how nicely that's making lines. I'm not making one long straight line. Can you see there? I'm not doing line, line, line. I'm going to sort of try and do some broken lines. I'm literally just touching the paper, bringing some lines down like that. It'll be quite difficult to draw a straight line unless you have a ruler there or something, and that's not really going to work. So almost, I've got quite a shortish edge here, so you can actually just put it down. It'll actually create a line. If it gets dirty, just remember to clean it every now and again with your fingers. So I just want to do these lines going down, and then I'm going to do some going across, and you'll have almost like a cross hatching. If you want that effect on yours. So you could just leave it like that. It actually looks quite cool. So if you actually want to leave it, you can leave it like that. But I'm actually going to turn it. And I'm going to go across now. And this is only going to work if you've got a slightly smoother paper like me. All right, so it won't necessarily work if your paper's coarse. So just make note of that. If it's not working, it's because your paper is more textured. So if you've got a textured paper, you'll probably find you've already got a nice texture there. Okay, when you did the initial paintbrush work. Okay, but the only reason this is working with me is because my paper is a bit smoother. So Almin, yours should be working quite nicely then, hey? With this part.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to do hectic. You can see, you just do a few little lines like that. It's actually more than enough. It's just to get that impression of this slightly different texture to your book, which is actually looking very cool. So now I've got 3 different books with 3 completely different textures. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. That other one's got the same textures, this one that we've just done, but I'm going to first finish this one, and then I'll go in with the other one. Okay, into the other one. So with the rest of this, so that whiter area, I'm going to leave white. And I'm going to, you can change the tonality very slightly if you want to. That's up to you if you want to give it a slight tonality. I'm just going to clean up that edge there, just to break it a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to go in with my blending stump. And then I'm using the blending stump because here I can get that sort of funny little shadow. That's where there's an extra torn piece there. So I'm going to use the blending stump to give it a rough sort of shadow. Okay, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as that one. As long as it follows the general sort of shape is fine. And all I'm doing is I'm just twisting my blending stump, and it's actually automatically sort of giving me that sort of shadow. If you want to put these lines in, so there are some lines here, then just use the blending stump to do it. Okay, so just grab a little bit of charcoal, but very little. You can see I don't want these lines to be too dark. I just want that impression of the fact that the book has been peeled there, that part of the cover has come off, and that's just that last bit where all the pages have been joined in the spine. So I'm just using a little bit. You may not be able to see it very clearly on there, but it is very subtle. Subtle is good. Remember at the bottom here it is slightly different. It's got actually another part to it there that we can just put in with the blending stump there. You'll see some willow charcoal is a bit softer than others when you're doing this, so sometimes you have to press quite hard for it to actually go onto the blending stump. So I've got different makes of willow charcoal here. They're not all the same. So some of them are a little bit harder than others. Let's try that one. Oh yeah, this one's better. So we can actually work with the owl next. Okay, so the owl, I'm just going to be using the willow charcoal with that, and then I'm just going to be erasing all the white areas. Okay, so just I'm not going to be using charcoal dust because it is quite dark, but I'm just going to be using the willow charcoal. And you can see his head sort of blends in with the background a bit, but we can change it slightly just by erasing some areas. So you're going to make the area that's just behind him a little bit lighter where those two join. Okay, so you can see where the book, so where these two join, if you're actually looking at your reference and you can't really see much of a difference, he is a little bit darker than the actual background. So you can go into that with a bit of a paintbrush just to make it slightly lighter. Okay, and you just got to make sure you get the tonalities of him right. Okay, so I'm going to put in the dark areas over here of his body there. And remember, he sort of goes almost behind that book over there. So it will be nice and dark there. Very dark just behind at the bottom of the book. Doesn't go all the way to the bottom. Remember, it stops before his feet. Okay. So his body, I'm going to just put a light grey down with the willow charcoal. Just using the side of the charcoal to do that. Okay, so with this lighter area on his body here, or this middle tone, I'm going to actually blend that in with the blending stump, but I'm not going to press too hard. So I'm not pushing it right into the paper, I'm just blending it so that it makes a nice little tonality. So don't press too hard. I want to be able to still maybe to bring out one or two little highlights there. I'm just blending it into the paper lightly. I can't use the paintbrush here because it'll take off too much. And it's not that light. The darker areas, obviously you can press a lot harder. Okay, because I actually want to make those areas a little bit darker. So I'm going to press quite hard into there. So that I can go back into it with the willow charcoal. So that eye on the left hand side, so the little eye on the left hand side, if you haven't got a small enough piece of charcoal, you can just go in with your charcoal on your blending stump and go into it. Also, don't press too hard. Okay, and then that dark, so on his left hand eye, that's got that sort of dark area, quite a darkish area around the other part of his eye. So that you can go in with your charcoal pencil, as long as you've got it in the right place. Just remember you can't erase this. So you can go into that with your charcoal pencil and then just use your blending stump to bring it in. So what you can do here is you can use now your charcoal pencil to bring in those little dark lines that go out from his eye. And then you just use the blending stump to blend them in. So you can just check there quickly. You'll see what I've done with that left hand one there. Okay, the left hand eye. So I just put the willow charcoal down sort of a greyish colour, and then I've gone with the dark lines with the charcoal pencil, and then I'm going to use now the charcoal of the blending stump now to blend that charcoal pencil into there. Okay, and then this middle part of his eye will also obviously change because it's not that white. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in with the blending stump just to make it a bit smoother. Okay, and then I'm going to make that section darker in the middle. I'm just going to use willow charcoal for that with the blending stump to bring in that dark grey part inside his eye there and leave that little white piece there. I don't want to get rid of that white piece. To erase it will be a nightmare. So just go around until you get the little white piece that you want. It's a tiny little sliver. There we go. That looks quite cool. So that part where it comes up against the background, I'm just going to use a charcoal pencil, go into that with a bit of the charcoal pencil to make it very dark, just so I can see his body is defined from the background, and then go into the blending stump and just blend it so it stays smooth, because remember he's sort of made from, looks like steel or something, so you don't want any coarse textures there. Remember just to squint and you'll be able to see if his eye needs to go darker or lighter. Okay. Okay, so with his body now, I've just taken the charcoal pencil now and sort of given it those little feathers on his chest. Okay, so just the bottom part, you can see I'm not making a circle, I'm just sort of making like a little scallop, sort of following the shapes roughly. I'm not actually sort of looking at the picture roughly, but I'm not going to be too fussy. As long as they sort of follow the initial downward shape. So you see they go at an angle, they don't go straight down, they almost go like at an angle. Okay, just giving the bottom pieces. I'm just going to put a few bottom dark pieces in, and then I'll go into it with the Hula charcoal to add some of the darker areas, and then I'll go into it also with the pencil eraser or the needle wool eraser. Actually, I think I'll use the needle wool eraser for that. So you just want to give those little scallops over there, okay, just to show where his body doesn't go all the way down, sort of goes down roughly to his feet there. Okay, I'm just going to bring the highlights into his body now quickly, just into his wings there. Okay, where's my eraser pencil? I'm going to use my eraser pencil there, and I'm just going to use it softly, just so I don't take off too much, because it takes off a fair amount. So there, I'm just going to bring in one or two little sort of highlights. I can try to see where the highlights are catching it. It's almost on the outside of these things, and some of them are on the inside. So you're just going to have to sort of look at the reference there to get an idea of where you want to put the highlights in. It's actually fine. So it's just the top section over here, this right-hand part of his body over here that's got the highlights in, okay. So it's not everywhere, it's only in the top section. That's a bit lighter. So if you look at him now, you'll see this right-hand corner is a bit lighter, and then at the bottom is slightly darker. So there you can just go in there with a little bit of Hula charcoal, just darken it ever so slightly if you want to. Just give it a little slightly more tonality, like that. Yeah, and then there's that little highlight on his foot there as well. Just going to put that in. And then his wing is a bit darker, so I'm going to go back into that, but with the Willow charcoal. I don't want to go in with the charcoal pencil there because it's quite a smooth sort of transition. So I'm just going to rather go in with the Willow charcoal. Okay, so that other book over here, so this book that leans against the owl, that's the same principle as we used for that one, okay. Okay, so where this book joins the rest of the owl there, I'm going to use my ruler to get the right line because I have lost it slightly. Remember, it does go up to his ear there, and then it obviously joins up with the other book. So just be careful when you put it down. Just want to get that right. There we go, about there. So I don't want to lean on this piece. So if you want to, I can just touch it there, just so I know where that one ends, about there. Okay, there we go. That's it. Okay, then I'm just going to do that dark line going down. It doesn't go all the way down. It just sort of goes up to that book there, past his ear, and down to just above his tail. So I don't want to take that line all the way down to the bottom there because it isn't like that in the actual original. It sort of stops just before his tail over there. And then between those two books as well, there's a very nice dark line. So that one we can actually go in as well. Just find the bottom of my book over there. Now remember what I did last time with this one is we just dabbed. Okay, so you just take your paintbrush and you just dab to get that texture. I'm not going to try and give this book any sort of shape whatsoever because it's quite a flat book. It's quite thin. I'm not going to try and make it look round or anything. The shadows on the edge as well will also give it that feeling, so that's fine. So I'm just going to dab basically everywhere. And before I go into this part, I'm actually just going to fix up the background behind it. Because to get the background to blend in with the rest of it is not going to work very well. So what I want you to do there is this section over here behind his head and behind him, his body as well, behind his wing. That you need to do now before you go into your book. Okay, so remember this line comes all the way down here. So that line goes down there. You want to fix this up before you go into the book. And you can see there's a line over here, it's sort of like a shadow that the book's casting against the wall or the background. Okay, so you want to have that little bit of a shadow showing there. So there's a shadow and then there's a lighter area. Okay, so just make sure you do have that. It's also what's going to make him stand out as well. Maybe you can use the blending stump to blend those in again if you need to change it slightly. So I'm just making sure it joins up with the book, so I don't have to change it afterwards and try and make the two join. You don't want to have a halo or anything there. Just make sure this background piece is straight. What I'm actually going to do with him is I'm just going to use the charcoal pencil where he joins up with the wall in the background there. I'm just going to put that in there just to define him slightly, because I'm going to lose it as soon as I take the willow charcoal and I go in there and I try and join those two pieces. So just use the charcoal pencil just to make it nice and dark there. Make sure he doesn't disappear, his body shape. Just use the blending stump to blend it in. Okay, now you can just start bringing in your detail into the book. Just don't forget to give your book its darker edge on the left hand side there. Okay, so there's a bit of a shadow there. You can just put that in with the willow charcoal before you bring your texture in. Okay, so I'm actually very happy with that book. I think I'm going to leave him as it is. Also doesn't have any writing, which is nice. Okay. I'll just bring in one or two of those little highlights on the edge over here. So there's some nice little highlights there. But of course this will stand out very nicely when we bring in the nice dark book. So that big black dark book on the end makes for a nice feeling. That's going to stand out very nicely. Okay. All right, so there again, with that book on the edge there, we're going to use the ruler. We're going to use the black charcoal pencil. Okay, just to bring our line back. Just do it very carefully because you are going to be leaning slightly on the other one. So just put it down, draw the line, and then just lift it off again. Okay, that you can bring almost all the way down, not quite to the bottom. just so you've got your line there to work from. So there you go. Okay, so now with regards to that writing there, where it says practical arithmetic, you're going to have to be quite careful with your charcoal here. I'm going to make it quite dark. Oopsie daisy. But where that dark area is, I'm going to rather go over a few times. Okay, so you're going to have to listen to this carefully quickly. Okay, so just stop and whatever you're doing and just look here quickly. All right. So this section over here, we are not going to be erasing. Okay, I can go down hard and put it down hard and push it into the paper so that I get an immediate dark black. Okay, but if I try and erase from there into that, it's going to be quite difficult to get the whites back. Okay, this section over here where I want to do that writing, okay, I'm going to be putting it down, but I'm not going to be pressing as hard. I'm going to rather put one layer on top of another layer on top of another layer. So I'm not pressing hard, I'm rather using my charcoal, and it depends on your type of charcoal whether or not this is going to work very well. Luckily my charcoal is quite soft. I'm going to rather just try and get a layer so that I can actually erase into that. If I press too hard, I'm not going to be able to erase into this. Okay. So obviously that right hand side there as well, you've got to be careful. So rather just go over it a few times until it just becomes darker. It won't go as black as that. That is just the only thing. Okay, so just up to where the writing is, you can press quite hard. But it'll be dark enough. So you can see I haven't pressed as hard, so it's not as dark as that, but it will be dark enough. And also that you can actually bring in some of the writing. Let's hope. Okay, so there I can go very dark. Now I'm going to bring that little bit of a highlight back before I put the writing in, but I'm going to use the paintbrush for that, just to bring that slight white highlight down. So I'm squinting my eyes again because I want to be able to get this right. I'm not even going to worry to bring that other little funny wheel thing at the top there. That's getting a little bit too detailed. Just want to bring some of that highlight back. You can also tap as well if you find it works a bit better. It won't be quite such a line, so rather tap your highlight out, I think. Oh, better. Remember to wipe your thing. So the cleaner your paintbrush is, obviously the more it's going to take off. Okay, so just be very gentle. Just doing very gently. Just got that slight highlight in there, which is about right. Doesn't go all the way that way far down, but I'll just go over that again slightly. There we go, that's perfect. Cool, so it's still got a bit of texture in the book. Okay, now I'm going to go in with the eraser pencil to put that writing in there. So as I said, you guys can just put what you want there. Try and make sure your paper is clean, okay? So I'm going to do a line over there. So I'm just going to bring in these old little bits here. Give it that nice sort of old texture, little bits coming off, little bits peeled off. And then you can just use your charcoal even if you want to. You can dab on there as well to give it a bit of a texture. Just add some interest to that book, okay? Because it's quite wide. You don't want it to be too smooth. Just give it a little bit of interesting texture there. If you want to bring in some of those dark lines, you can as well, but that's up to you if you want to go that far. But if I'm looking at it, I'm actually very happy. I always quite like just this sort of dabbiness. I'm bringing in, I'm making it darker here, giving it a bit of a texture here. It almost reminds me of when you have those Bibles that have got this sort of rough sort of texture to them, you know, on the edge. Almost like that old leather. And you'll see there's a very, very dark line. So there's quite a dark line between the two books. Okay, that will make it nice and definite. It'll define it nicely. So you can bring that dark line in. You'll see it's like thicker in some places, a little bit thinner in others. Okay, so just make sure your book does stand out nicely from the background here. All right, so whatever marks you make on this edge here, make sure they're nice and sharp. Okay, so I'm just going to clean the surface up before I work on it, the foreground, just because it's got a little bits of stuff on it there. Okay, so I'm very happy with the tonality so far. They're looking good to me. If I compare them to the picture itself, so this book is a little bit paler, but that's fine. It actually stands out quite nicely. The rest of the books are looking good, I think. Alright, and remember you can always go back into it afterwards. If you've looked at it for a day or two and you decide it needs to be a little bit darker or a little bit lighter in areas, then obviously you can do that. So I normally always give it a bit of time afterwards, you know, just to give it a little bit of thought, give it a bit of time. Okay, so just behind him needs to get a little bit darker there. So you can work directly on top of him because we did the charcoal pencil there. Just want to make it a bit dark over there. Okay, cool. All right, so with the foreground, that I'm just going to use the charcoal dust or charcoal powder. I think in the thing it's actually called charcoal powder, but I call it charcoal dust. And you're going to use your paintbrush for that to bring in this woody texture. Okay. You'll just have to explore and see what works for you there. Okay, then I'm just going to use the needle eraser. I keep saying needle eraser. We actually haven't really used the needle eraser today. So if you want to, you can for this area, or you can use the Sharpie razor. The Sharpie razor might be a bit too sharp, so this is quite nice to get some softer transitions with a needle eraser. So I'm just going to give it ever so slight edge to it. So you can see there what I've done now is I've just given my table a bit of an edge as well. Okay, so instead of just coming directly off the page, I've given it another perspective. So the trick is just to get the shadows, those nice dark shadows, in the right place. Okay, especially with the books join up. So if you see that maybe that needs to go slightly darker, so say for instance between those two it could go a little bit darker, then you can do that. You can leave it as it is. But if you wanted a slightly thicker line, you'd have to be very careful though, because if you do go into that now with, you put a ruler down because you want it to be straight, you're going to sickle. Because you're going to be getting rid of some of your charcoal. Doesn't matter how you lean on it, because it's a very soft transition that over there. Well, it's very softly done. So if I am going to do it, I'm just going to have to do it by hand, very carefully. And then with the blending stick, I don't want to lose that line. You might just have to twist your page and do it if you need to, but I want to make that a little bit darker between those two there. And you can see that immediately stands out a little bit more. So just with the very, very dark shadows, oh my goodness, just be careful what I've just done there now. Thank goodness for willow charcoal that it actually is so fixable. So if I'm going to do this, I just have to be very careful. So I actually just turn the paper around. It might be a lot easier that way. Okay, so these dark areas I want to make quite nice and dark over here, where the two join up. That shadow really makes a big difference when you make it nice and dark like that. This is a bit too thick, obviously, because it's actually just a very, very thin shadow. It's what we call the occlusion shadow. It's that very, very dark area where there's like no light. Okay, so I'm very happy with the foreground now. I've given the table a bit of a lip, even though on the original it doesn't show that, but for me it gives you another dimension. And also it's not too plain. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just looking at it as a whole and just deciding where it needs to be tweaked a little bit. So for instance, I can see it needs to go a little bit darker behind the owl. This is where you take a break, look at your picture, come back, and then check to see where you need to change any of your tonalities. Not so much your details. If you're happy with the details that you have, you just leave them as it is. But it's the most important thing here actually, besides the details, is actually to get all your tonalities right and make sure that they gel. So I'm just going to add a few dark pieces here and there, and then I should be done. What I'm doing here is I'm just going to rub the charcoal into the paper, just so that if I put more charcoal on top of it, it'll go a bit darker. You can do this with your charcoal pencil. Just got to be very careful that you don't get a strange texture. So if you want to try it with a soft charcoal pencil, you can do that. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and use my willow charcoal. And just try and get it dark as possible there. So you have to press quite hard into the paper. Remember, this paper of mine isn't very textured, so it only takes it up to a certain point. So you'll see now it doesn't really want to go on any more than that. Okay, so it won't go any darker. Your other option here then, if you find that your particular willow charcoal doesn't want to go dark as you would like, is you will have to spray your picture with a fixative. And with regards to that, the fixative, you do get a workable fixative that you can use to spray on, and then work back on top of it again. And then you can also use your normal fixative as well, but you just have to be quite careful with regards to that, that you don't make it too wet. And then your charcoal won't sit on top of it. Okay, I know it sounds strange, but you do get some fixatives that actually almost smooth out your picture. So when I say about too wet, if you go and spray it and you notice it gives it a very thick layer almost, you might battle. Okay, so the best thing then to try and do is get a workable fixative for that instead. So you see I'm just cleaning up now where a few of my little scratches have come in, because it's when I put some paper down on there. So that is inevitable, you might get one or two little scratches. It's actually better to try and use a clean piece of paper if you possibly can. And I want to try and keep that line there. It's quite a distinctive line. Also, what you can do as well is, once you've sprayed it, sometimes you'll find that that area will actually go a bit darker. So, and you won't actually need to change it. So not everybody's going to look like mine. But as long as you follow the basics, then you should come out with a beautiful picture. Thanks very much for joining the lesson. I hope you enjoy. Cheers.